Shalom, family. Good to see you here. Hope you're doing well. We're going to talk about something Donald Trump tried to pull. He wants to destroy, starve, and decimate the people that live in the blue states and in sanctuary cities. You know, and I'm just going to let you listen to what this would have done if he would have pulled it off. And I really believe he's going to attempt to do this again. He got shut down by a judge, but you know Donald Trump. Donald Trump will just find another way to do it. But he literally wants to destroy people that live in blue states and blue cities. That's what he wants to do now. And what he intends on doing, it would literally destroy the whole country. So what he's talking about is not funding blue states and blue cities, not giving them any funding, only funding red states. I guess where his voters are. Yeah, only they get funding, but if you're in a blue state or blue city, no funding for you. So let me go ahead and share my screen because this is absolutely crazy. I mean, I hope y'all know what this impacts. It impacts child care, SNAP benefits, Medicaid. If you get heating assistance, you wouldn't be, all of that would be gone. All of it would be gone. Hospitals would be impacted, grocery stores would be impacted. It would literally have a domino effect on everything. Yeah. So please give me a one if you can see my screen. Thank you.
Trump has now threatened blue states, saying that on February 1st, all federal funding will be cut to these states simply for having sanctuary cities. And what a sanctuary city is a city that will not hand over information about its residents to immigration forces, nor will allow any state funding to go towards these operations. And he is calling these cities dangerous and criminal. Therefore, they do not deserve federal funding anymore, and nor does their entire state. Here are the states included in that: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, District of Columbia, Illinois, Minnesota, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. Let me know if you notice a trend about these states. Last week, Trump also tried to freeze $10 billion in childcare and family assistance programs in 5 Democratic states: California, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, and New York. Luckily, this was blocked by a district court judge, but only temporarily. I don't know if you remember this saying from history class, but no taxation without representation. File exempt through your employer, it is time to withhold. If the federal government will only fund its citizens discriminately, then we will not fund them.
The President of the United States has just announced that he's cutting off all federal funding to blue states. This would be the collapse of the United States of America if he is not prevented from doing this. This is an illegal seizure of spending power. This is a collapse of federalism, and it is a constitutional coup. Infrastructure in states will come to a screeching halt. So construction workers will lose their jobs in mass. Road projects will end. Transit projects will end. Medicaid care will be shut off. Hospitals will close. Nurses and doctors won't get paid. And nursing care facilities will shutter. School lunches, food assistance, public workers, and state budgets will completely collapse. This will cause the loss of life and irreparable harm to children, to the elderly, to veterans, to working families all across this country. And we will officially be an authoritarian government. Our Constitution will be null and void. This is serious, and we should take it serious. Congress needs to act now, Democrats and Republicans. He is destroying the United States of America as we know it.
If you live in a blue state or city, you need to hear what Trump said today. This is a declaration of economic civil war.
Starting February 1st, we're not making any payments to sanctuary cities or states having sanctuary cities because they do everything possible to protect criminals at the expense of American citizens.
You heard it. February 1st, all federal funding is being cut to sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, aka blue states, states that are fighting against his policies, states that are fighting back against immigration enforcement. He's cutting off federal funding. But what does that federal funding go towards? I am so glad you asked. That goes towards the SNAP benefits, food stamps, food assistance, heating and utility assistance. Unemployment insurance is also subsidized by the federal government in some states. So they are literally going to try and starve the American people into submission. That's what this is. He thinks that by withholding federal funding, they're going to starve the American people into submission. We now know the date, February 1st, and I'm sure states are going to challenge this in court. I can almost guarantee that. What happens? To be determined, but we now have a date, February 1st. And by the way, that actually coincides with a potential government shutdown. You know, we had another one of those coming at the end of the month, right? So pay attention. They're trying to starve us into submission, and we cannot let that happen.
Today, amid just the blitz of headlines on what has been a gigantic news day following a gigantic news week, you might not have noticed the news today. You might not have seen the headline today that today a federal court blocked the Trump administration from cutting energy funding just for blue states. This is billions of dollars Congress appropriated for clean energy projects of various kinds all over the country. Trump administration decided, and they admitted this, they decided that just in blue states, just in states that didn't vote for Trump, they would cut all of that funding. They'd leave the funding in place in states that voted for Trump. They would cut it in states that didn't vote for Trump. A federal court today ruled that that is illegal and stopped the Trump administration from doing that. That ruling today came after another federal court today stopped Trump from shutting down a big offshore wind farm in Rhode Island and Connecticut.
You've probably noticed how hard it is to keep track of what actually matters in politics right now. Every day brings a new Trump headline, a new clip, a new argument, a new headache. Something that feels urgent for a few hours dominates the news cycle and then gets replaced by the next thing before anyone has time to sit with it. Now, because of that constant noise, some of the most important developments are slipping almost unnoticed. Not because they aren't serious, but because they aren't dramatic enough. They don't come with rallies or shouting matches. They happen quietly through court orders and congressional votes. And that's exactly what's been happening over the past several days. In a short window of time, Donald Trump ran into resistance from two places that actually matter when it comes to power: the federal courts and the US Congress. Not once, not in a symbolic way, but repeatedly, and in ways that are starting to add up. This wasn't one bad news story, it was a pattern. And it started with the courts. On a single day, federal judges blocked multiple major actions taken by the Trump administration. The first ruling involved clean energy funding. Congress had already approved billions of dollars for clean energy projects across the country. The money was meant to go to the states, regardless of politics. The Trump administration decided to change that. Hey, what happened to states' rights? Officials moved to cut the funding, but only in Democratic-led states. Oh, how funny. States that voted for Trump would keep the money. States that didn't would lose it. This wasn't an accusation from opponents. The administration admitted the decision was political. A federal court stepped in and ruled that the move was illegal. The judge made it clear that the president doesn't get to selectively cancel congressionally approved funds based on which party a state voted for. The funding had to stay in place. That ruling alone would have been significant, but it wasn't the only one that day. Sorry, Donnie. Also on that same day, another federal court blocked the Trump administration from shutting down a major offshore wind project off the coast of Rhode Island and Connecticut. The administration had attempted to halt the project entirely. Now, the court ruled that effort unlawful. The project was allowed to continue. Two separate rulings, two separate issues, same outcome. The administration was told no.
Both of those rulings today follow last night, yet another federal court blocking Trump, this time from cutting funding to the American Academy of Pediatrics. This is a doctors group, a pediatricians group that criticized the flock of ducks level insane quackery at Trump's Department of Health and Human Services under RFK Jr. Trump responded by canceling federal grants for the American Academy of Pediatrics. A judge has now ruled that that was illegal retaliation. And so Trump is blocked from doing that. That funding has to be reinstated. That ruling comes after another federal judge just blocked Trump from cutting off federal election funds to states in retaliation for them not changing their election rules in ways that Trump wants. The judge said, quote, "The Constitution assigns no authority to the president over federal election administration." And so Trump got blocked on that one too. Shall I keep going? I could keep going.
Then came another decision, this time involving the American Academy of Pediatrics. This is a national organization representing pediatric doctors. Now, the group had publicly criticized the Department of Health and Human Services, which under Trump was being overseen by RFK Jr. Hey, brainworm. Not long after that criticism, the administration canceled federal grants that supported the organization's work. A federal judge ruled that move illegal. The court found that the funding cuts amounted to retaliation for speech. The grants had to be restored. That wasn't the end of it. Trump also attempted to cut off federal election funding to states that refused to change their election rules to match his demands. A federal court blocked that effort as well. Now, the judge was direct, writing that the Constitution gives the president no authority over federal election administration. Thank God.
Another federal court just blocked Trump from freezing billions of dollars for childcare and social services for kids, again, in Democratic-run states, as some kind of punishment against those states for electing Democrats, punishing them for that by cutting off the Temporary Assistance to Needy Families program. Because, what would Jesus do? Trump was also just blocked from doing that by yet another federal court. It's almost like he is losing all the time and everywhere now.
Shortly after that, yet another federal judge stepped in to block the administration from freezing billions of dollars in childcare and social services funding. Once again, the funding cuts were aimed at Democratic-led states. And once again, the court ruled that action unlawful. At some point, individual rulings stop being the story. The pattern becomes the story. Judges across multiple courts are no longer expressing surprise. They're no longer issuing gentle warnings. They're issuing firm orders, often daily, sometimes multiple times a day. The courts appear to have concluded that the administration is willing to push legal boundaries aggressively, and they're responding accordingly by pushing back. For any president, that would be a problem. For Trump, the bigger issue showed up next. Congress. Court losses can always be brushed off rhetorically. They can be blamed on activist judges or partisan bias. Congressional resistance is harder to explain away, especially when it comes from your own party. And over the past week, Trump has faced one of the clearest congressional rebukes of his presidency.
As I know you are aware, last week in one 48-hour stretch, we had a Senate vote for a war powers resolution to block Trump from any further military adventurism in Venezuela. 5 Republican senators crossed over to side with Democrats to pass that war powers resolution. It was enough to advance that. It's going to get another vote in the Senate this week. That came right on the heels of 17 Republicans in the House breaking ranks with Trump and siding with Democrats on the Affordable Care Act to try to at least temporarily undo the disastrous decision Trump and Republicans made in their so-called Big Beautiful Bill.
It began in the Senate with a war powers resolution related to Venezuela. The resolution was designed to block Trump from taking further military action there without explicit congressional approval. And when the vote came up, 5 Republican senators crossed party lines and sided with the Democrats. That was enough to advance the resolution. It's now scheduled for another vote. Republican defections on war powers are rare. They signal discomfort not just with policy, but with presidential authority. And that wasn't the only break. Now, in the House of Representatives, 17 Republican lawmakers broke ranks on health care. They joined Democrats to undo changes tied to Trump-backed policies that would have caused health insurance premiums to spike for tens of thousands of American families. This wasn't an abstract disagreement. It was about real costs hitting voters directly. And Republican lawmakers decided they didn't want to be tied to it. Midterms, hello. Trump reacted publicly, complaining and threatening to veto the measure if it passes the Senate. Poor guy. But the damage was already done. The vote had happened. The defiance was on record. Then came the fight that barely got any attention at all, despite being one of the most consequential: the budget. Trump opposed sweeping cuts to the federal science and research programs. These weren't small trims. They were deep reductions that would have reshaped how the United States funds innovation, technology, and long-term research. Congress rejected them almost across the board. Trump wanted to cut the National Science Foundation by 56%. Congress responded by cutting the NSF budget by less than 1%. He proposed major cuts to the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Say that 10 times fast. Now, that includes weather forecasting, hurricane tracking, and climate monitoring. Congress rejected the cuts and gave NOAA flat funding. Trump wanted to slash basic research funding by more than 33%. Congress did the opposite, increasing the budget for basic research by more than 2%. Now, this wasn't driven by one party. The framework originated as a bipartisan agreement in the Senate and passed the House as well. Lawmakers used the strongest tool, the Constitution, which gives them the power of the purse and directly overrode the president's priorities. There we go. That matters more than speeches or statements. Budgets determine what actually happens. The political math explains why this is unfolding now. House Republicans are operating with an extremely slim majority. If all Democrats are present, leadership can only afford one Republican defection on most votes. That gives individual lawmakers enormous leverage, and many of those lawmakers are looking ahead to the midterms. Told you, Democrats are widely expected to retake the House. The Senate is also increasingly competitive. Alaska, Mary Patola, Democratic, announcement. She's running against Senator Dan Sullivan in Alaska. Just one example of Democrats signaling confidence that the races once looked out of reach. Now, when power looks like it's shifting, behavior changes. Lawmakers start protecting themselves first. Trump still dominates attention. He still commands loyalty from parts of the Republican base, but the attention isn't the same thing as control. Courts are enforcing constitutional limits. Congress is asserting its authority, and Republican unity around Trump is no longer automatic. This isn't a collapse. Trump isn't finished, but it is a constraint. And for a presidency built on pressure, leverage, and intimidation, constraint is a serious problem. The loud moments get the coverage. The quiet ones change the power of balance. I'm Adam Carr with Liberal Hub. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you like the video, go ahead, click that like button, go ahead and subscribe. Stay informed, stay safe. We'll see you next time.
Well, we'll see if Donald Trump finds a way around, because he don't listen to judge rulings. Although he got shut down from defunding blue states and cities, it doesn't mean he won't find another way to do it. We know how Donald Trump operates, you know? And remember, y'all, the government is just funded until I think the 31st of January. So there can easily be another government shutdown, but we shall see. We're not that far off. But yeah, so if you didn't vote for Donald Trump, he wants to cut your state off. That's what it all boils down to. He's going to defund you. Boy, I said, what does this man do? Does he go to bed and wake up? What kind of evil can I do today? What rotten thing can I do to people today? I'm serious. I'm starting to think that's what this man think like. So y'all, this is going to be my final live for today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your support and your donations. I deeply appreciate it. And I will see you all tomorrow on all different topics. Shalom, family.